Hi YouTubers, this is another video from your friendly neighborhood reviewer, Evelyn. So today we're going to carry on reviewing the new Korean drama series, Reborn Rich. If you want an explanation about what episodes 1 and 2 and what the series entails, see the thumbnail here. So let me tell you guys, there's so much to review from episode 7 to 11. There's so much to cover. So quick glance over to where we are. So when we last left off, the grandfather of the Soo-young group, the chairman, has found out that his youngest grandson, Jin Dong-ju, is the one behind the miracle group and the one that managed to handle steel, did certain things behind the scenes. In episode 7, we have the confrontation between the two. One sitting in one end, Jin Dong-ju, and the other one, the grandfather, and they're drinking tea. And the grandfather is there, speechless. He was like, "You?" And he goes and screams, "Why?" And Jin Dong-ju goes and explains plainly, "I want to buy the Soo-young group with my own money." And the grandfather just laughs, saying, "You think it's gonna be that easy? Do you want me to pass down the company to you?" And Jin Dong-ju essentially says, "No, I'm gonna buy with my own money." So episode 7 is Jin Dong-ju realizing that if he's gonna go against his grandfather, he needs to go a different tact, because he got the construction rights of building a new digital town in Korea, and he even got the husband of his auntie's wife, who was a prosecutor. He went and made the auntie's husband as mayor of this particular town, so he thought he had that all in hand. But however, the Soo-young group wouldn't let that happen. And on the top of that, we also have the grandson of the eldest son has come back into the picture. So if you remember in episode 1, the son of the chairman of that timeline was very abusive and manipulative towards the character Song Joong-ki played, his original life, and we see that coming through. And of course, in episode 8, the grandson of Song Yun-on, the eldest grandson, the sake of transparency, gets married between episode 8, and when he gets married to the wife that we saw in episode 1, the daughter of the daughter that is heiress to all these art galleries. So like in the original timeline, they still get married, but the daughter sees more promising things within Jin Dong-ju, and she kind of tries to bait him by saying that she'll be the sponsor of advertisements for Jin Dong-jun's kind of like business, in which he retracts because he can clearly see that the daughter of the heiress of these galleries just wants to keep him on the leash, so she goes and rejects him. When both the eldest grandson and the daughter of these gallery things get married, Song Joong-ki goes through a different tact. So Song Joong-ki goes through a different tact. His own dad in his current timeline is a producer that imports movies and so on, and is married to his wife that was an actress. The dad gets a visit from his own dad, the grandfather, and basically tells him that this is what your son is doing. Why don't you be a chairman of the hospital, let's say, and stop what the son is doing. But the dad of Song Joong-ki's character goes and talks to his son and says, "I'll support you any way that I can. I think I can help you with the advertisements for your company." And the end of episode 7 is more like Song Joong-ki realizing the parents that he does have in this timeline, that there is love there, and he can feel attached and supported by these current timeline's parents. He kind of feels that, because imagine for 10 years plus to have memories of a different life and not to go crazy about that, wondering. And we can see that Song Joong-ki is satisfyingly doing everything that he needs to do to make his life worthwhile in this case, in which his parents are going to be in this current timeline, is going to help him. So episode 8 is the wedding between the oldest grandson and the daughter who owns these galleries, heiress to galleries. But Song Joong-ki goes for a different route as to getting a certain TV channel, like TV shopping. You know how it is, like in certain channels where they have online TV shopping, people advertising, buy this coat, buy this jewelry, and so on. And Song Joong-ki sees that's the perfect way to get his commercials into this certain channel. So he gets a list of the copies of these patients that are staying in the Soo-young hospital, because of course the Soo-young group owns hospital, car companies, manufacturer, insurance, X, Y, and Z. And he finds out that the opposition leader of the Daeyoung group is getting treatment for his heart. So Song Joong-ki's character goes to the hospital with his right-hand man, with the CEO that's helping him with the miracle group, and he talks to the chairman of the Daeyoung group, and the chairman's like, "What are you doing here?" and he's about to call security, and Sung Joong-ki opens his eyes to the Daeyeon group about making them more successful, about buying a shopping channel in which he'll get revenue of people buying stuff online for things they think they need. So Sung Joong-ki does that. He goes to the wedding and he's late. They do a family kind of like wedding picture, and he's standing next to his grandfather, and the grandfather says, "Come on, smile, Do-juna, smile. Why are you not smiling?" And then Do-juna, or Sung Joong-ki's character, goes and tells his grandfather, "I'm not going to buy Soyeon Group anymore. I was foolish to think that." And the grandfather was thinking, "What?" And he goes and says, "I'll use all the things you taught me, grandfather." And then he tells the grandfather, "Smile." In that moment, they catch the shot where the grandfather was looking at his grandson like, "What? Like, what's going on?" And Sung Joong-ki is like, they're smiling. So we get put forward to the wedding speech, and the chairman finds out from the chairman of the Dongyeon group that the grandson came. They have a confrontation. He meets the chairman and he says, "Don't you teach your grandson anything? He came to me without batting an eyelid about this promotion thing." Okay, they have that talk. They don't show the full extent of that talk. And when there's the wedding toast that the grandson's already married, everything's there, and the father's grandson, the eldest son of the Soyeon group, comes with the expectations that the grandfather is going to give a higher position to his grandson. But lo and behold, the grandfather says, here's your wedding present to the grandson," and he goes and tells everybody that his grandson will be transferred to shipping and transport, not a good kind of position to be. It's kind of like menial, like not the greatest position. And the son is like telling his dad, "Why are you doing this?" And then the grandfather tells everybody that he knows the grandson did some illegal things about getting this type of thing. Like, the grandfather is not angry that the grandson did something illegal about getting money towards like doing also a digital town in Seoul, which Sung Joong-ki had the same idea, but the only thing the grandfather was angry was that the grandson got caught in doing that. He got stepped out, and the other miracle group that Sung Joong-ki is like managed it to get it. And then the grandfather says to his oldest grandson, "You want me to treat you like an adult? Well, adults need to do responsibility." And the oldest son is like pleading to his father, "Why have you done this? Haven't I given you everything?" And then the grandfather walks off and says, "The only children I really love is the Soyeon group." So we can see the order priority. By the later episode, you really do feel for the grandfather, but then again, the grandfather, like the consequences that he's getting with his children is of his own making, and the mom's. So the grandfather walks off, and then the grandson is about to he's really angry. He's about to attack Sung Joong-ki, like almost replaying on his previous life. But the now wife of the heiress of this art gallery faints as to stop her now husband making a big mistake and putting him in a bad image. And then we get later on down the line that revealed to the conversation that the grandfather had with the opposition leader of the Daeyeon group. The leader of the Daeyeon group tells the grandfather, "Despite what your grandson did, he has the smell of the money. He can whiff out money of what he did." And then the Daeyeon group goes and stuns the grandfather and says, "He reminds me of you about 50 years ago when I met you in this small town in Korea, how you were, that you can see the money there." And this is what leaves the grandfather stunned. Of course, in the dinner conversation beforehand, he did mention to everybody, stunned, that he'll take away the rule of succession, that the oldest one would inherit everything. And the grandfather tells all his adult children, whoever will inherit the Soyeon group is the one that makes Soyeon group bigger and better and more wealthier. And that sets off the money signs and all the other siblings groups, especially because within the siblings, you have the eldest son, the second eldest. You remember this? I watched Vincenzo, the episode. You remember the actor. He was also in Vincenzo as the second son. And then you have the sister, and then you have the youngest son that is the father of Sung Joong-ki's character. So the other three siblings are there with money signs, but the youngest son doesn't care. He wants to be away from the family drama. So everybody's there left shocked. And they all know that the grandfather is more seeing eyes towards of Jin Dong-jun. So from episode 8 to 9, there was another thing that was revealed. The eldest son of Yong-ki, that apparently he's not not biologically the mom. I think the chairman had an affair and then like convinced his wife to go and raise the eldest one. So that was a bit of a shocker to me that the eldest son was not biologically the mother. That's from my understanding. So she was a bit miffed that the chairman went and announced that the wedding of the eldest son. I didn't get that part, but hey. So from episode 8 to 9, Song Joong-gi goes and with the chance of not being aligned to get the Song-yeon group, he tricks his auntie into giving up her shares of a department store by investing in this new technology group, new data technology, in which Song Joong-gi, because he knew in his timeline that this new technology company, the shares would go up, but there would be a point that would go dramatically down and people would end up losing their money. So Song Joong-gi goes and convinces his aunt to invest in that and the aunt putting her stocks in the department store of Soo-yeon Group as collateral. So he manipulates that, and also we get time jump of the prosecutor girl of Song Mi-young. I'm doing this off the top of my head here, so forgive me if I'm not remembering the names correctly. She now becomes prosecutor, so we have a time jump ahead. And also as well, they kind of gloss over the fact that Song Joong-gi graduated from law school. We can clearly, on my understanding, Song Joong-gi only wanted to know about the law so he could manage his own company and do things on the side. It's useful if you know about the law, at least you know how to protect yourself. Maybe he learned in business law, let's say. So she's now a prosecutor and she's having a hard time because on that time scale, her being a female prosecutor, they were trying to more put her as, as a model instead of her doing real work. So they meet again from episode 9 and Song Joong-gi tells the girl, help me to investigate my family and especially my auntie for embezzlement of stocks. And she's a bit like, okay, whatever. She was thinking that they were going on a date or something because she never changed her telephone number. Also within episode 9, we get more things about, around what happened in the 2000. Because who remembers the 2000? I was like, when was I? 2000, I was like 9 years old, something like that. And then there was that whole myth that since the year 2000, the computers didn't know how to handle it, updating to the year 2000, and that all the computer technology was shut down. So there's that kind of conspiracy theory going on, and it shows in episode 9, the year 2000, even Song Joong-gi's older brother is like there as comic relief thinking, oh my god, the apocalypse is coming. We see that even though that the grandfather knows Song Joong-gi's intentions, the grandfather still allows Song Joong-gi in his presence because the grandfather can clearly see that this person has potential. The only reason Song Joong-gi as Jin Dong-jun has that greater potential because he knows what it is to be poor. He understands the magnitude of working for the things that you need, even though he's in the soul of a different body. So that puts him in an advantage. He understands what it means to be poor. Because of course the grandfather started off like poor and made his way up. Only people that have known helplessness can understand and appreciate the value of power. Of course, if you're children of wealthy people, maybe they may not understand it. But hey, let's not go into that topic. So he goes and convinces his father about doing some safety insurance thing that saves the grandfather 10 million. And then the grandfather says, oh, do you want a favor? And Song Joong-gi says, not right now, but Happy New Year, grandfather, and he walks off. And the favor that come about later on is the Song Joong-gi will tell the grandfather to do an emergency board meeting to push out the auntie as chairman of the department store that Soo-yeon Group has. Song Joong-gi has the secretary of the auntie as kind of like a witness of recording things. But however, before the witness can go, she gets captured by the auntie's people because of course the auntie's not going to let her witness, her right-hand person, be the one to dub her in. But after the fact, Song Joong-gi went and mailed the tape recording pen to the prosecutor, the girl prosecutor, and she comes in at the end. I thought I had a misunderstanding with the translation, but Sung Mo-young goes and arrests the auntie, and of course the auntie gets pushed out. So within episode 10, Song Joong-gi already has the shares of the auntie's department store and he's there running it. So the grandfather takes it for what it is, because the grandfather does explain. He's got to understand that all his kids are going to be fighting over it, but he'll be standing aside as a referee to intervene. So the grandfather is legitimately letting whatever plays out. You really you start to like the grandfather, but then again, he created this mess by breeding greed, because the grandfather, after seeing the department store with Son Joong-gi, he has his critiques, but Son Joong-gi is there like, okay, listening. And then Son Joong-gi goes, and then the grandfather tells Son Joong-gi, the doctor runs some tests, and then the grandson's like, oh, you're getting treatment? It's like, no. And the only thing they found was 3 things in my heart: greed, suspicion, and something else. So they kind of have that laugh. But of course, the auntie, she's already lost everything. And the next target is the second brother, not the eldest, but the second brother about the investment group. The second brother, which you remember him from Vincenzo playing another bad guy, goes and dubs Son Joong-gi and gives false information that when the Miracle Group invested in new data technology, they did some stock market manipulation. So Son Joong-gi's now girlfriend, we can assume, the prosecutor, Son Min-young. Forgive me if I'm not remembering these names. I had a very busy day today about finding a new place to live. So hard to find places to live. The economic, crisis is going on. Maybe that's why I like watching Reborn Rich. It makes me fantasize, if I had all the power and knowledge in a different life, what would I do with money? Difficult situation, but I'm going off track. They're already dating. Song Min-young goes and tells Son Joong-gi, not dating, they have a kiss and so on, because the female prosecutor goes and says, I'm not going to be a good prosecutor as you see me that I would be. So they have a romantic scene where this K-pop idol that had went away, had come back in the time that he said the year, but Song Joong-gi didn't know what time precise. He shows the female prosecutor that, and she's like, they're in shock. She's like, oh my god. And then of course they have a kiss, and then Song Joong-gi goes and tells her, you will be a good prosecutor. And of course she helps him to really investigate that Son Joong-gi of Jin Dong-jung, that he's not guilty of anything. There's no stock manipulation, and he helps prove that, because before that, the second son summons the grandfather and makes these accusations. And what the second son's plan is, since the time has passed, let's say 10 years, the grandfather says we need a different form of business to save the company. So they start doing an investment thing, in which the second son, or the uncle of Son Joong-gi, goes and says, don't worry, we'll help him, with all the big money that he's rolling, that the Soo-young investment will go and buy Miracle Group. And Son Joong-gi is looking at the grandfather, this is not what I want. But the grandfather goes and tells his second son, okay, you better pay my grandson a good price for it. But actual the fact, we get another big historical event which is quite shocking about the Twin Towers. Son Joong-gi is before the time changes, he knows that the Twin Towers is going to fall, and he's there, very anxious. The anxiety I can see, because if you know something really bad is going to happen and you have no power to change it, it's going to leave you feeling, completely hopeless. But before that happens, Son Joong-gi goes and asks his other guy, the investment guy, the other guy, I'll put in a name here for God's sake, to go and liquidate all the assets that they have in America. And the investment guy's like, we shouldn't do that, we're already in the midst of legal problems. But Son Joong-gi says, and he basically tells the investment guy, just listen to me. I told you 5 years ago, just help me prove my hunch is right, and just continue to listen, in which he does. And when the Twin Towers falls and the stock market closes for such a devastating event, Son Joong-gi is in a better position. But he went and manipulated his uncle to buy 2 shares in what the Miracle Group was doing. And he made the uncle lose so much money, and he forced the uncle to give over the shares of Soo-young investment to him. And at the end of episode 10, we see the uncle dramatically going into the family home, confronting his father, and then the grandfather / father of the group realizes how pitiful he made his kids into. And at the end of episode 10, he gets Son Joong-gi into the car and then offers him, I'm going to give you Soo-young Financial Group. How are you going to feel about that? And Son Joong-gi is of Jin Dong-jung is like, oh my god. And then in that moment at the end of episode 10, a truck is coming forward to hit them, but first the car crashes into them, and then the truck goes, and then as the glass is shattering from the car window, Son Joong-ki gets a flashback to his original life, in which he moves the bookshelves aside as Hyun-woo, and he sees the family tree, and he sees his I don't get this part. He sees the picture of himself as the grandson. I don't get this. Somebody who watches the series with me on Rakuten Dot, Vicky and all that kind of stuff, explain to me. We don't ever see a picture of Hyun-woo, the original character's picture, and then the grandson of other pictures. So which is which? And Son Joong-ki says as Jin Dong-ju, the only reason I didn't know about the grandson in my original life, because the grandson died. And that was the end of episode 10. That was a big cliffhanger. I saw episode 11. I'm going to tell you, briefly. Episode 11, he gets saved by the driver that was sent by the second uncle that wanted to put in intel. And the driver sacrifices himself. The driver's alive. He goes and drives in with his car where the lorry is, and he's the one to cushion the impact that Son Joong-ki and the grandfather in the car was having. So they all survive, and they're in the hospital. So of course with episode 11, we know about the driver saved Son Joong-ki, and of course the grandfather. They go into Son Joong-ki tells the bodyguards that came in conveniently late, tells the bodyguards to call the ambulance, and they take everybody to the hospital. All the family members rush to the hospital and they ask to see how their father is. But unbeknownst to them, the father is still alive. The doctor lies to them saying that the father is in a coma. But Son Joong-ki is there talking with the grandfather and the grandfather's right-hand man, and they say the obvious. They try to murder the grandfather. And I don't get how the grandfather is so surprised that his kids are trying to murder him because of what he's bred of all the suspicion and greed. But I believe it's the eldest grandson that orchestrated this. Blamed as well the sons and daughters of the grandfather for passing on the same toxic kind of way of living to their children. So it's like a generational thing. Son Joong-ki's father is they made him chairman of the hospital. That gives his father the power that he needed to tell all his siblings to get the hell out of the hospital, that their grandfather needs to be, safe away from any infections, in which they do. So Son Joong-ki is very shaken about the fact that somebody tried to murder him yet again, and they're there trying to find out what's what. And the grandfather is there, very connively. He's saying, "Only I, Jin Yang-jul, will arise from the dead." That the plan was originally for episode 11. They'll try to find out who could be the culprit, and that they'll go to the board meeting, and the grandfather will be there to shock everybody. And it's obvious logic that the grandfather will see whoever will say no to doing certain business transactions is the culprit. And they find out the eldest grandson's wife is a gallery owner, and they found out that the transaction they used to pay off the would-be assassin was a painting for the eldest grandson's wife's gallery, in which we found out there is a painting missing, but the wife of the eldest grandson tells him, what did you do with the painting? Why didn't you tell me? And there's a conversation, so I think the eldest grandson is the culprit of the would-be murder. And this information gets put to the chairman of Jin Yang-jul, in which he's shocked that the wife of his eldest grandson could be implicated. And then they're about to say what's going to happen next, but for everybody to remember, the grandfather has a brain tumor, in which conveniently gets attacked, the symptoms get manifested, and he gets into delirium. Kind of looks like Alzheimer's to me, but hey, a brain tumor pushing into your brain, and he has no idea who the people are. Because in that moment, in that secret meeting of Jin Yang-jul, the chairman, Son Joong-ki's character, and the chairman's right-hand man, they're all talking about what to do next, and the chairman and Son Joong-ki are shocked. And the end of episode 11 is having to deal with the chairman losing his mind. So there was a lot to cover from this to that. Forgive me. To anybody who makes it to the end, a big thank you. There's been quite a lot of things to cover. You let me know your theories of how this series is going to end. And leave any comments down below. And to any new viewers, really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. And as I believe you always, bye.